Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good evening for those in Europe and other parts of the world. Good to see you. So today we have been talking about how reactivity is normal in relationships. I mean, when we've been talking about it, as we were talking about it earlier.
It's normal in our relationship.
And it's nothing to be ashamed of.
No.
And it's really just a healthy part of learning to navigate each other's separate realities, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
And one of the areas of separate reality that I think is kind of funny, but we live in a community where our houses are fairly close together, and there's lots of small dogs around us. And for me, when the dogs are barking or making a noise, that's just part of the natural environment of the community that we live in. It's not something that jumps out at me. It's not something that I even really notice. It's just a normal part of the ecosystem that doesn't bother me.
Small dogs make a lot of noise, it appears.
And as you can see, Angus has a lot more thinking about it, wouldn't you say?
I do. I'm amazed that you don't.
But that's just an example of how, for me, there's no reaction. But for you, when you hear it, you notice it, you start thinking about it, and then you feel frustrated or annoyed or whatever it is you feel.
Yes, I mean, I could elaborate on that, but it probably wouldn't go anywhere particularly good.
Well, I'm just using it as an example of how the exact same situation can have two very different reactions to it, or on my part, a non-reaction.
No, I appreciate it. It's really amazing to me that you see that as part of the normal landscape of your life, whereas I see it as something that's actually a nuisance that needs to be eradicated.
And that's thought.
I'm currently training my husky to devour them.
Stop it. That's not true.
Which is why you nearly ate that chihuahua in the park the other day.
He did not nearly eat a chihuahua. He's not a beast. And then we had this other situation that happened on Monday, where it was another situation with us with separate realities in our relationship, where I said something to you, and I can't remember what the question or what the comment was, and then you responded, and I was confused. I didn't understand your comment, and so I furrowed my brow out of confusion, and I said, I think I said I don't understand, or whatever I said, and that felt like a complete attack on you.
Well, upon reflection, I think what happened was that I woke up in an agitated state, and I can't even remember what happened or what I was doing, but I wanted some feedback. And that when I asked for that feedback, you turned to me with a scrunchy face. And I interpreted that as you showing up in our lives with a bad feeling, which I think that my way of pointing that out to you was to perhaps, I don't know, I criticized you in some way. And your response to that, in my mind, was to sort of put on your 3P police hat and say words to the effect that I was going outside in, which I took significant umbrage to that. And because it was such a blind spot to me in my state of agitation, I couldn't see it. All I could focus on was that you were showing up in a bad feeling, and it completely contaminated my morning.
And what's so funny is that whenever I put on my 3P police hat with you, you know that I'm in a bad feeling, that I've lost my stability.
That should be an indicator in itself.
So
I can see this imaginary light on your head flashing.
Which is really smoke coming out of my ears.
It is.
But in those situations, it happened so quickly. I was in what I thought was a really nice feeling talking to you, and then you interpret my facial expression in a way that I was completely shocked by, but I took it personally. I got reactive. I started scolding you. And then...
I need to work on myself some more. I couldn't even believe that notion would rear its ugly head again after all these years. That my level of consciousness was sufficiently lacking that I needed more help. Well, maybe I do. I guess we can all do with more help. That wasn't the moment to deliver that information.
No. And then again, that was a reflection of how stirred I was in that moment. But and it was one of those things where throughout the day, there was just a bad feeling in our relationship. There would sort of I think we were both checking each other out to see, is there an opening? Like, no, gotta keep my guard up, gotta keep my weapons out, not risking it. And then finally what happened is, fortunately, we had the webinar with Dickon that afternoon. And so as I was listening to the webinar and I was getting present, and, you know, I could just feel myself settling and my heart opening and just coming back into myself in a connected way, I could feel all of the anger and the hurt and the frustration and the disappointment, like all of those feelings just melted away. And all of a sudden I could feel warmth coming back towards you and realizing, like, it's not a big deal. And why am I holding on to this? And so I just gained tons of perspective. And that's really what the learning curve is with reactivity. And through going through that experience, I've learned more, I'm sure you've learned more, to make it easier to deal with separate realities going forward. And in relationships and in life, it's really an experiential learning curve. And it's through things like that that we see more deeply what's really important, what's really true for us. And it's been a long time since we had that kind of experience, but I think each time that happens, there's more understanding that comes in.
Yeah, I think certainly for me in that situation, I think that what's come forward for me when I work with clients in the relationship arena is that people often ask, you know, what is it I need to do in that situation when my partner is being a total ogre or I'm feeling out of balance? And for me, it always seems to come down to this idea that, you know, while I'll speak for myself, I'm looking for indicators as to why I'm getting out of balance, or looking for the indicator perhaps that can at least allow me to see that I've got out of balance. So, you know, we talk about there being these blind spots. So Monday morning, that was a blind spot for me. And I think there is a tendency in the moment to want to go and figure out the blind spot. And that's the worst time to figure out the blind spot. Figure out the blind spot when we feel a little bit more settled. So in my innocence on Monday morning, I'm trying to figure out the blind spot. And all I could come up with is blame towards you for showing up with this ill feeling.
With a scrunchy face.
With a scrunchy face. And then I think it was actually I got really settled listening to Dickon in the webinar. And then it just occurred to me, and I was like, wow, blame is very much an indicator for me. Blame is another way of me getting into judgment. If I'm getting into judgment, then my feeling is starting to tank. And that in itself is actually a really good indicator. So that, I don't know why that really opened up to me, but it opened up to me in a way where I saw it a little bit more clearer. That as soon as I go to any kind of blame and judgment, I've got really entrenched in my conceptual mind. And the feeling is going south pretty quickly. And that for me is like, yeah, look, there's another indicator there that will help me grow and learn. And in the future, when that, you know, those kind of situations develop, I'll get better equipped. It's seeing those red flags, if you like, indicators. That's what I like to, you know, that's the term that I like to use. And I think that's been so helpful in the growth and stabilization, if you like, of our relationship over the last few years, where it's got to this really great place where it was really in a place of complete disharmony on so many levels.
Yeah, and that even in a great place, we have moments like that are really part of our learning curve of dealing with each other's separate realities and seeing more clearly for ourselves how we can get caught up in our ideas of judgment and ideas of blame and our ideas of criticism. And then when we get caught up in that, we lose touch with our heart, we lose touch with the present moment, we lose touch with our connection with that nice feeling inside. But it's not bad or wrong. It's just normal. It's human. It's what it is to navigate life with another human being in it.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that comes forward for me is in that situation, which is where this is a blind spot, my intellect or my ego is saying, I got your back. We'll sort this out together. Or let me just take the reins here and we'll figure this out. And then I go looking, you know, for reasons why I'm in the state that I'm in.
Oh, your ego's saying that to you in your head.
Yeah,
I thought it was saying that to me.
No, my ego's saying that to me.
Got it.
And then it goes, you know, all it does is take me on this journey of more distraught thinking, which ultimately just gets incrementally worse and worse.
Yeah. And we bounce back.
And we bounce back.
So it's all good on all levels. just like the dogs barking are part of the natural ecosystem of where we live, reactivity is part of the natural ecosystem of being human, and it's not something to fix or change, but we can learn a lot from it.
We can, but that's definitely a blind spot for me.
What, the dogs?
Yes.
We all have our learning curves.
We do.
Well, thanks everybody who joined in. So great to be here live with you. Have a great weekend. And anybody who's interested in the Refresh and Reset workshop that's happening next weekend, it's now available for live stream. There are just a few spaces, right, left in person. So there's still a couple spots left in person if you want to come, but it's open live stream. If you want to join live stream, I'll add the link to this, and maybe we'll see you there. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.